Welcome to Amiga Ireland. It's the May episode. The weather is lovely outside. I'm Irla.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Luke.
In today's episode, we have a very full game section, including Knight Rider 77, a pleasant monochrome racing game.
We look at some interesting new hardware that's coming up on the horizon.
Yes, and I think that's going to be the storm. And the storm is coming.
And you can find all our show notes in your podcast app or at our website. But before we get started, guys, how have you been over the last month? Rob, how are you?
Daddy?
And fighting off an invasion here.
Daddy?
Yeah?
It's doing the clicky thing again.
What's doing the clicky thing again?
The CD player.
I've got my invader just behind the door. She'll be knocking very soon as well, probably.
Yeah.
Carry me upstairs. Carry me, Daddy.
Has it been a month of solace?
A month of solace. It's with a few beta testers, and I've got a couple of new firmware updates rolling out. But also I've been catching up. I've had a couple of machines here to repair for an embarrassingly long length of time. So apologies to a couple of guys, but getting to the bottom of the pile now. Busy month.
It's felt to me like, honestly, I was just setting up today. I was thinking about the last time you recorded. It feels like 2 months ago. So much has happened. It's been insane here. But on an Amiga related note, I finally got a C compiler going thanks to Nivrig. So thanks, John, for that. My Hello World program is now working. It was really nice to see that pop up on the screen. I'm very happy that I could start dabbling whenever I get the time to do it.
If you ever feel like challenging yourself with riding a driver, I'm...
Let's see.
Is it ready under the flashing cursor? Okay, so not much of a difference for me, to be honest, from the previous months. It's just, all the preparations, all the packaging, sending, preparing, testing, solving problems, helping people, and all that stuff. So it's just ongoing. So that's that.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we have two guests with us this time. From the Amiga.gr podcast is George Psomiadis, aka Walkero. Thanks for joining us, George.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome along.
Hello.
You're doing a great job on the podcast. I only ever had basic Greek, but I still play it while I read the show notes. I really enjoy it.
Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find the podcast gives you more time to try out new things on the Amiga? I mean, I find with the podcast, I kind of spend a bit more time trying things I would probably never do otherwise.
Actually, I was doing those podcasts just to spread some messages of things that I like to get involved or try out, and people seem to like it, but it takes a lot of time, of my personal time, and because it is a one-man show, it is getting really boring sometimes doing those podcasts. So I find it interesting to work on a podcast and try new things to discuss with others, but it doesn't have that much of replies from the people. So it seems like it's one way of discussion, which doesn't make much sense.
Maybe something we can do there. Actually, I know a really good co-host that you could get involved. I'll introduce you to him now. We've got Aris Sokianos with us, who leads the coding for Amiga Ireland in here too. Hi, Aris.
Hello.
Hello.
Last time you were on the show, it was still the pandemic, and I was sure we would meet between then and now. But a year has passed. We still haven't seen each other since. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, to be honest. I had so many plans. I had to do, but then the quarantine struck and everything was cancelled, unfortunately.
Yeah. At least school was cancelled too, though.
Yeah, true. I have more time because of that. Yeah.
Cool. So, and on top of coding, of course, all the coding you're doing here, you're helping us with the podcast too. So you're too good to us, Aris. Thanks for that. Thanks for coming.
No worries.
Now, it's time for this month's news. First up, Dublin Maker 2021 is, Dublin Maker is an annual event that's been on the go for some years now in Dublin, and it's a free event that has allowed makers to connect and showcase their work each summer. Last time they had thousands of people attending, and that was pre-COVID, of course. So this year they're going online, and there is a really good channel intro on their YouTube channel if you want to go and check it out. But the link I'm sharing it today is their application form for anything you might have that you might want to display yourself or show at their event. There are so many different categories to enter under, and they've even had Commodore 64 demos and stuff in the past, as far as I'm told. Excuse me, it might actually be a little bit too late to enter. I'm just seeing here. I only just found out about this since the last podcast was recorded. But if you can't get your item in, or you don't have something ready for them this time around, why not attend online anyway, and maybe come up for an idea for next time. And best of luck to the organisers. Looks great.
PyStorm is another turbo board, but this time it utilizes the technology from the Raspberry Pi, actually, a Raspberry Pi 3. So thanks to that, you can actually connect Raspberry Pi, thanks to that little, like a board, you can connect Raspberry Pi to your Amiga 500, or Amiga 1000, or Amiga 2000. And you can have an accelerator that is as fast as 030 within like a SD card and RTG as well. There is development to make this board work quicker, but it's still in progress. But this looks very promising, especially taking into consideration the fact that the Raspberry Pi is just very cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's looking very promising, alright, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So we have the Raptor 1200 was announced by the Apollo team. It will be a new accelerator for Amiga 1200, which will be a cut-down version of Vampire V4. It will have a core of 68080 CPU in an FPGA chip with 128 megabytes of RAM and supporting FPU. The team targets to a low-cost accelerator for those who do not want much features, and it's currently testing. If everything goes well, it will be released in a following couple of months.
Well, that is very interesting, especially to me. I have an Amiga 1200, and I know quite a few people who do. Fusion Magazine, an Amiga special issue, has been made freely available on PDF, and thanks to Stormkeeper for letting us know about that one. It's largely gaming focused. It's A5 in size, this PDF, and it's nicely laid out. I haven't heard of this magazine at all before, so if you haven't either, here's a nice treat for you.
And a shout out to John McDermott, who I believe is heavily involved in that. He's one of the Scottish guys here.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's at least one of the editors on it, and he's definitely done some contributions for it as well. So, being an Amiga special and all that.
Nice.
Okay, there's a TF1200 adapter under development. So, the name might be a bit funny, but basically what this is an adapter that fits in Amiga 1200, and it gives you a 68K CPU socket. So, might sound a bit counterintuitive or counterproductive because you've already got a 68020 on the Amiga 1200, but what this will do is it'll let you plug in something like a PyStorm or a Buffy accelerator into the Amiga 1200, which otherwise it couldn't do because the buses are quite different. So this is a very interesting thing. Still early days yet, but the board is under development at this stage, and I know there's some collaboration between the Buffy guys and Stephen Leary of Terrible Fire fame. So watch this space, but that'll be very interesting.
MediaVault version 1 released for Amiga OS 4, and probably you never heard about that application because it is one brand new application for Amiga OS 4. It is one of my newest projects that I'm working on. It is an open source desktop application for Amiga OS 4 which can be used to discover online radio stations. The selected radio station can be streamed using a player, in example the Amiga Amp 3. And my target for this application is to add podcasts, discovery, and support local network DLNA media servers. This way, the user will be able to mark his favorite podcasts, like this one, or radio stations, listen to new episodes, and get notifications about them. Also, if he has movies or songs in a DLNA server like Plex or Jellyfin, he will be able to stream them on his Amiga and the media player of his choice.
That's awesome.
George, this is your project.
Yes, it's one of my latest projects.
This is amazing. I see this is
and
your
it is
GitHub.
developed in C. So, Irla, whenever you feel comfortable, join me.
I'd be delighted. That's amazing. Well, fair play to you. This is great.
Thanks, guys.
Amiga Transfer by Vasilis lets you bootstrap your Amiga without floppies. Now, I mentioned this last month as a tool for OS 1 machines like Amiga 500s and CDTVs and stuff like that, but it actually works on OS 2 and OS 3 as well, so I misspoke there. So for anybody running those systems, here's a quick recap of what this is and what it can do for you. It's a file and disk transfer tool which works via the serial port. It is able to read and write and compare floppies, install boot blocks, send and receive files, and dump the Kickstart ROM. So it can do pretty much anything you could imagine. And unlike most of the other serial port transfer tools, it doesn't require you to install anything on the Amiga side. There's more on offer that you can find at the link, and future releases are to be expected. So well done again, Vasilis. That's a really cool, that's a really nice tool to have available.
It's very clever, and there's a bit of black magic involved there, but it's harnessing the debugger that's built into the OS, and it's very clever, very clever.
Wayfarer 1.16 was released. This will be a new browser for MorphOS, which is getting better and better, with the latest couple of versions introducing video playback from YouTube and other websites.
Our last part of the news is we've started doing a monthly segment on magazines. Last month we talked about Amiga Future, and this time we have K&A Plus magazine. Now, a lot of us came to Amiga from other Commodore machines, and K&A Plus is the magazine that acknowledges that. It covers the entire range of Commodore, and it's produced and edited by, among others, Tomas Ankudovic, who we know well from our event here at Amiga Ireland every January. He's the reigning SWAS champion at the moment, and also the creator of the Tower of Rubble C64 game. So he's got quite a lot under his belt when it comes to Commodore. Now, this issue's cover disc has, I think, about 12 8-bit gaming releases on it, and each issue has gorgeous artwork on the front. The magazine itself begins with fresh news, and I'm looking here at a load of game entries, each with its own screenshot, and they're very clearly tagged, so you can quickly see which one is Commodore 64, or if it's Amiga, which one's OCS, ECS, RTG. They're all there. VIC-20 as well. It's really, really nicely laid out. Then that's followed by a 2-page spread of Commodore 64 artwork in the section that's called the Gallery. And this month, the Gallery has some incredible artwork, pixel artwork for the Commodore 64 by the Sarge. Now, they do lots of in-depth game coverage, mostly new games, but plenty of classic ones as well. Soul Force by Sarah Jane Avery is in there for the Commodore 64, and that's gotten very positive reviews. There's Spellbound Dizzy for the Plus 4, Overthrown for the VIC-20, and Tristram Island for those previously mentioned, as well as the PET, the Commodore 128. And there must be at least 100 games in this issue here I'm looking at, and the previous issue I have as well. That's kind of, that'll give you some of the gist of what's going on in there. Now, they also have an interview with the creator of the C64 game Outrage, which got 9 out of 10 in their interview in the same issue. They also interview returning demo scener and graphic artist Lukas Golbiowski. Hope I didn't mangle that too much. His artwork is here. It's absolutely sublime. So there's a big cultural aspect really to their magazine, which includes, actually in this issue, there's a whopping 7-page interview with Dave Haney, which was conducted over a couple of months between Tomas and Dave Haney. And that's well worth a read, because I've seen and heard a lot of Dave Haney interviews, and this one still has new stuff in it. Actually, one of the things they talk about is what makes something an Amiga anyway, and Dave has an answer for that one, believe it or not, but I'm not going to spoil it for you. Yeah, that's a ballsy one to take on, isn't it? In a very definite way. Now, later on, there's a competition involving screenshots from demos that you have to identify, and there's prizes for the winners. And then as far as tips and tricks go, there's an article on fast and easy file transfer directly from your PC to the 1541 floppy drive using a DIY approach. But also, it shows you how you can buy it cheap as well as a low-cost solution that you can just order online. There's repair of an A600 and adventures in setting up Amiga on the Pi 400. It's a really good magazine if you love the Commodore 64 and the range as much as you love the Amiga. You can visit ka-plus.pl, and this particular issue I'm looking at will be released in about a week's time, I'd say. And there's a whole catalogue of back issues there too. That's the news in general. Let's go on to the games. Knight Rider 77 by Luigi Recanatese and Fabrizio Radica is a monochrome game that looks cute and blocky at first, but has some sophistication to its design that is gradually introduced as you start playing. It's definitely unique, so I'd recommend anybody to give it a go. It's one of those instant death games where you have kind of 60 seconds to get as far as possible and you can take damage. I had a lot of fun with this one, and when I tried it, and I'd recommend it.
Yeah, it looks brilliant. It really does. I think Amiga Bill had it on his stream there the other day as well, and it looks the one more go kind of game.
Very addictive then.
Yeah. And the styling is brilliant. Like, it reminds me of Atari 2600 or even pre-Atari 2600 stuff, But Turrican 2 AGA port is underway. This is being ported from the VGA version, the MS-DOS version. So basically, it's taking the PC graphics and the game and porting it to the AGA chipset. So Turrican 2 is obviously an Amiga favorite and is for OCS ECS, but it did have a lot more colors and it's a bit of a different style to it when it was on the other platforms or some other platforms. So this is interesting. It looks a lot richer color wise, and the style is a bit different. But so far it looks nice and smooth. It will need some optimization coming from MS-DOS because it's obviously entirely different the way the graphics are all laid out and that. But currently it looks like it runs pretty smoothly on an 030. But that's something to keep an eye on for the next while.
Not too bad at all. Last time we talked about Kings Valley, which is another port of a MSX, this time MSX platformer. It's a very colourful platformer, and this time it has been released to Aminet, so you can download it from Aminet as an ADF file and then later on transfer it or burn it to a floppy drive, or use your GoTech, or just simply mount it on your workbench and just enjoy it.
Turbo Sprint is about to be released. It is an enhanced version of the classic arcade game Super Sprint. It's developed by Grim Cowie, better known as Geyser. Also, Geyser was the developer behind the Rigger port for the Amiga. The game features 8 tracks that rates in difficulty, with up to 4 players which can control 4 colored cars. It requires an AGA Amiga to work, and it will be available as a download from its.io.
Nice. Well, yeah, he's got a good track record on games, so that's going to be a good one anyway. I think I played an older alpha of that, and it was looking.
Sorry.
Now, Wrong Way Driver by Abyss. This is another entry in the latest trend of stylish, quick play Amiga games. Wrong Way Driver sees you driving a car travelling to the right on a horizontal screen, and you're going headfirst into oncoming traffic. And there are several lanes, and there are pickups you have to get and stuff like that. So it does look really nice. It's got that real kind of classic arcade look and feel to it. And I did enjoy playing it. Yeah,
they pull some nice tricks with that game because it does sort of a perspective scaling on the sprites or on the shapes that are on the screen, like the cars and the objects and stuff like that. So it's a very simple game in initial appearance, but there's a lot to it, and it's a very impressive piece of work.
I like that the wheels, when you're moving back and forward, that's when the wheels seem the most animated. Yeah. Like, so it kind of, the scaling actually adds a pseudo animation factor.
Absolutely,
to it, cool.
It's very good, very good. Now, Tanks Fury is getting re-release in big box form. So you might remember this from a couple of years ago. It was released, and it's a very nice, very nicely polished, one single screen tank arena kind of game. And it's you can play multiplayer on it, there's a single player mission mode as well. And it's a great little game. And so that's getting a big box for them. So if you want to support the guys and maybe get some support development of new games from them, because they're very good. It's Project Red, wasn't it? I think
you're right.
Yeah, they're pretty
3
accomplished
guys.
developers. Yeah. Yes. So head on over, because it's a great way of supporting these guys, getting these sort of limited edition boxed releases.
Right. Yet another game. This time, shoot 'em up. This is a game called Kingdoms of Steam, and it's a shoot 'em up game, which takes place in steampunk era, so late 19th century, I think. And the colors are very, bright. The game is, fast paced, and it is about to be released in June. You are directing Zeppelin, I think, as far as I remember. Am I right? Yes, it's a Zeppelin, and you fight enemies and fighting bosses, and then it's a good style. It's a good game. I'm hoping that the release will come in June, as it's been announced.
3 indie games released for Amiga OS 4. They are ports from the PCs and ported by Cassie. And these are The Worlds, which is a third-person shooter, The Eldritch, which is a first-person rogue game like Minecraft and Barony, and finally Gorinlich, which is a top-view RPG game. Those games require the latest version of Warp 3D Nova and are built with the GL4ES, which also got an updated SDK. To play those games, you need a powerful Amiga 1 system with a Radeon HD or Radeon RX graphics cards.
Now, Invia by Tiger Skunk has been released, and this is a horizontal shooter inspired partly by R-Type. The graphics and the music are really lovely. Now, I've played the first level of this, and it really is a very pleasant game to play. This is normally my style of game, these horizontal shooters, but this one I really did enjoy. The colour palette is a little reminiscent of the synthwave scene in parts. And as soon as I started playing, I really enjoyed getting immersed in it. I can't say the same for R-Type, actually, so I actually enjoyed this more than R-Type myself, but like I say, this isn't my genre normally. Now, there are these really cool kind of large guys, these sprites in it. They're in these giant spacesuits, and they come out and kind of strike a pose and they shoot at you. I've never seen anything quite like these before, so the style is really unique. The reviews have been overwhelmingly positive, with some mention of a glitch here or there, or the maybe the collision detection not being perfect in some parts of the game. But I haven't come across anything like that. Now, I use autofire on my joystick. I probably wouldn't have stuck with the tapping constantly all the time, but I think the developer is actually talking about introducing autofire anyway, so I don't think it matters. Now, it runs on a wide range of Amigas, and Tiger Skunk are based in Munich and have set a minimum price of $12 on this. So years of work went into it. If you look, there's a thread on abime.net and about the latest release. But if you go back to the first page, I think it started way back in something like 2007 or something. It's like years ago. So it's worth it. Check it out if you haven't so far.
Very nice game. Right, yet another game. This time the game is called Bluff, and it seems that it's a French word to me. And the game has been released in English. So Bluff is a top-down game where players sit on floats trying to sink the other players by throwing sea urchins at them. And it's some sort of interesting game, because I haven't seen anything like it before. Looks very colorful. The graphics is very nice as well. So I'm just interested in playability. The game is written in Amos, but hopefully it brings a lot of joy and fun.
I do know that the levels are randomly generated on that one, which would probably give a lot of longevity to a game like that.
This looks like a mobile phone game, but I'm just curious.
Shadow Warrior ported to Amiga. This is a game released in 1997 by 3D Realms, considered as one of the classic FPS games for the PCs. The main engine is ported to classic Amigas and can be found on Aminet. You will need a powerful CPU to play it at full speed, a 60 CPU and above. You will need the game data files. Gladly, the Shadow Warrior is available for free on GOG.com. A port for Amiga OS 4 is also in development and soon to be released.
Hopefully that's enough gaming news to keep you busy until next time. Next, we have our Discovery section where we talk about interesting things we've learned since the previous podcast episode. Okay, first up, this application is called Scout. Scout is a handy application that lets you do all kinds of things. You don't have to reboot your machine if you need to do something with Workbench. So I ran a program from the shell and it was hanging on me and there was no way to, unhang it so I could do other things on the machine. So I did some searching because I didn't want to reboot, and I found this recommendation from DDNI on AbiMe, and I don't want to get too technical before the Ask Amiga section, but there are a myriad of options there that you can do to try and manage programs that are misbehaving. So I was able to remove a lock file, for example, in this case, so that a program could complete. Yeah, you can think of it as Task Manager in Windows, basically, for the Amiga. Very handy application.
It also gives you a lot of good information on, the library versions and, semaphores that are being locked and things. A lot of stuff that could, help you troubleshoot. It's a nice partner for Snoop DOS. So, the two of them do sort of complementary things, really, and it's very useful.
It's so useful that people ported that to Morphos and Amiga OS 4 as well, because we need applications like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, another curiosity actually, C64 can actually be used to mine Bitcoin. I didn't know that C64 is powerful enough, but from what I've read, it all started when a guy that likes a Commodore machines saw another guy who actually was mining bitcoins using his Nintendo machine, as far as I remember. I think it was Game Boy actually. So he thought, why not try and do something like that with my C64? And he actually wrote a program, and it is possible to mine bitcoins with C64, but to mine one, it would probably take a lot of time. If not more.
Like 300 years.
If not more.
Yeah.
Have in mind that I don't know if Commodore 64 is good to mine bitcoins, but it's a reliable platform to run for many, many, many years. So you can mine bitcoins for your grandchildren.
Yeah. Or their grandchildren.
Yeah.
Right, so interesting, very interesting thing.
So JST is on GitHub. JST, you probably know that as an application that can be used to start Amiga games from hard drive, pretty much what the WHD load does. It understands JST and WHD load slaves and loads its data from hard drive. It's been around since 1996, but was revived a few years ago with Kickstart 1.3 and better WHD load compatibility. If you want to see how these things are working, go there and have a look on the source code.
You could only get, or most games that could be installed with one of these was use JST. So that was kind of the more popular one at the time. And, for a lot of games, you could only get a JST installer for it. And it was great. But then, WHD load kind of took over then and became the standard as such. And it's what everyone uses now. And as you say, it sort of absorbed the JST's technology. So then it was able to support all the games that JST supported as well. So it kind of fell into disuse really, because WHD load took over and became the standard more or less. But yeah, it's good to see there's still activity there.
I think there are still some slaves for JST, and as far as I remember, JST works also with Kickstart 1.3, whilst WHD Load requires Kickstart, at least Kickstart 2.0, and the JST is a bit lighter than WHD Load.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, okay, I'll tell you my discovery, my first discovery anyway for this month. So I was off looking for fan fiction to read. I really enjoy. I found some good fan fiction in the past, some for like the Alien franchise, some really good ones that continue on from maybe the second movie or something like that. Or even the first one. I found really good Terminator fan fiction. So I was looking for Frontier Elite fan fiction beyond the stuff that comes in the box. I did find plenty of well-written stuff, but I came across this excellent 5-part comic series that is really professionally finished, and it's available for free download as a PDF. Now, these are based on the Jameson character, the ships and the locations, and the story begins in Sirocco Station just as Jameson inherits his Eagle long-range fighter Mark II. And the artwork and the storyline are really good. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but as far as this medium goes, the medium of comics, and we don't have much of this. So enjoy, and thanks to Dave Jones for creating them.
I'm going to add a bit there. That it's not directly related to Amiga or Elite 2, but Elite Dangerous, if you'll know, is the sort of like, it's basically Elite 4, and it's out at the moment. By the by, there's a big update of that coming out soon. If you like Elite Frontier Elite 2, it lets you fly around, do a lot of the same stuff, but the update is going to let you get out of the ship and walk around first person. So you can dock in a space station and get out and walk around the space station, which is pretty epic, That it'll be good. So that's coming out later this year, so sometime in the summer. But I was going to say, there are a bunch of novels that are written for Elite Dangerous. So they're sort of semi-official. I can't think of the names of any of them, but the guy who writes them is called Drew Wagar, or Vagar, I'm not sure. And but that might be worth checking out as well, because it's the same universe, just 1,000 years later. So descendants of Jameson. And there's a little bit of lore in there, like the in the game Elite Dangerous, you can find Jameson's crashed ship, and it's been sitting on the planet for 1,000 years, but you can still read the logs of it and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
Interesting.
A lot of tie-ins there.
Actually, I was I found in an Ask Me Anything thing on Reddit that what's the creator of
David Braben,
David Braben did, and he was asked where the name Jameson came from, and he was saying that they needed a certain number of letters for the save file of that name, so it had to be 7 characters long, and that was one of the names he came up with, and he liked it. So he said there wasn't a plan to have a big backstory or anything at that point. It was just,
there you go.
It was just a lucky dip.
No
cool,
worries.
but I'll check out those novels. Yeah, thanks for the tip. Okay, and the last discovery here in this section is this comes in from Carl Jekyll up in Dublin. Thanks, Carl, for that. NetBSD for Amiga. Now, this is a really interesting article. It's written on jekyll.ie. That's jeacle.ie. And this article was originally written at first in 1995, where Carl talks about installation usage and a kind of a review, really, of NetBSD and Amiga. So NetBSD is basically installing Unix on your Amiga. So I don't know if you think back to the Jurassic Park movie or something, that was kind of Unixy. So imagine that kind of thing running on Amiga. And he has a really cool screenshot there of forwarding a web browser from another Unix or Linux machine. It's Firefox, I think. And then using it on the Amiga. It's just absolutely fantastic what he pulled off with it. Yeah, so it was really cool, and the review was really interesting. He gives a bit of history as well of Unix on Amiga, without going into too much depth, but he gives the other options and the competing distributions, so to speak, that you could put on it. Now, what makes it even more interesting is in December 2000, just gone, he extended the article because he went and downloaded the current NetBSD, which is still maintained, installed it again on the same chip, 040 processor. It could be a different speed, I'm not sure. The contrast is very interesting. I won't spoil it, but there are differences. But seeing that screenshot is absolutely cool. So thanks, Carl. I really enjoyed reading that article, and we have the link to that in our show notes. Now it's time for our IBROWSE section, where we look at websites that are a pleasure to use even on classic Amigas. And this month, the first website is midnight.pub. Now this is best described as a very lo-fi Facebook alternative. You can register on this website and post your musings in the one and only feed there is that's shared, and other members can comment on the existing posts, and you can also create pages as well for yourself. Now some of the posts are kind of soapboxes where people, have something they want to talk about, maybe something they've been reading or a project they've been working on. There have been some escape room type games that describe a room you're in, and in the comments you have to describe your actions. I go and search for the keys. It's kind of a role-playing thing. I've seen a few people use it for. It's really cool. Everything works so well on IBROWSE. It loads really fast. This is as basic as social media can really be, and I wish more social media was like this. Obviously you can use this on your smartphone as well, and anything like that. Social media websites. So yeah, that's midnight.pub. Very interesting, and probably the nicest thing I found for IBROWSE so far.
Another one called August Lilea. It's a very nice blog that loads actually in 10 seconds. The layout is very, very minimalistic, and each entry loads in 3 seconds actually from there. The last entry was called The Green Padlock, which is about HTTPS. The author points out that governments are complaining about encrypted communications, such as WhatsApp, Telegram, and Signal, but not about HTTPS. Isn't it odd a bit? What do you think? The author goes on to theorize that HTTPS is probably already transparent to governments, which is why we don't hear them complaining. A very interesting blog in general. It's part of an Advent series. They limit their blogging to the Christmas period. Either way, it's still worth bookmarking, reading, and using on your Amiga with IBROWSE.
Okay. Next up, we have Ask Amiga.
Okay, so this month we have another question from Irla, who's pretty regular with the questions, which is great. And it's, what size memory cards can I put in the PCM-CIA slot with OS 3.1.4? Just to back up a second, if you don't have an Amiga 1200 or an Amiga 600, you won't be all that familiar with it, but the 600 and 1200 have a PCM-CIA slot on the side, like an old laptop memory card slot. And it is actually extremely useful for network cards and for basically compact flash cards with a cheap adapter. So it's essentially the standard is very compatible. So all you need is a little bit of software you can get from Aminet, and it lets you read and write PC formatted compact flash cards. And that means obviously you can transfer to a card reader on the PC, and it makes things super easy for transferring files to and fro. Now, historically, the Amiga's always had issues with large hard drives, as in, over 4 gigs. Now, it was never a problem when the operating system in question, the versions came out, but it became a problem when the operating system wasn't updated, but the hard drives were. So up until 3.1, you've got a limit of about 4 gigabytes without resorting to tricks. So 3.5 and on, like 3.5, 3.9, and 3.1.4 all fix that problem in various ways. So, but 3.1.4 is the most concrete way because it does it in the actual ROM. But where the issue comes from is there are two issues really. So you've got the device driver and you've got the file system. So the device driver is how the low level actually speaking to the device, transferring data to and fro. And this is the problem because, at the actual raw access to the device, what sectors, what blocks to access, that has a 4 gigabyte limit, or that has a certain limit. And then the file system on top of that is how your partitions are organized, and that will have its own limits. So both of them are sorted for hard drives that are installed on the internal IDE in most Amigas. And, but that's all that 3.1.4 sorts out. And it just happens that that's a very common thing because people are all constantly adding hard drives to 600s and 1200s. And so this is a really useful fix. But any other controllers, they aren't affected by the update. So for the likes of this compact flash thing, this compact flash adapter for the PCMCIA port, the software you download, it has its own file system called FAT95, which is brilliant. It's FAT32 compatible and lets you read FAT32 disks, like floppy disks if you really wanted to, or like compact flash cards, or even hard drives if you're brave enough to plug one into the Amiga. But you've got the file system, but you've also got the device driver, which is called compactflash.device. Now, these are nothing to do with the OS. They're both extra components, and so they're both completely independent, and they are where your card size or your device size limits lie. So both of those systems, the device driver and the file system, have to support the bigger disks, and that's how you get big disk access. So it's nothing to do with the internal IDE port or anything, and that's kind of where your OS is concerned. So the good news is that both FAT95 and compactflash.device support basically the kind of fairly up-to-date standards, which means they include support for large drives. And I don't know what the limit is, but possibly 128 gigabytes. I have that figure in my mind, and I think Luke mentioned it earlier as well. I'm pretty sure that's kind of that's a safe size anyway for partitions. You might not want to go above that, but in theory, it should work with any size really, because once the drive follows the rules, it should all work. FAT32 supports up to 2 terabytes, I think, and I'm pretty sure Compact Flash device supports the full size anyway. But anything up to 128 gigs should be pretty safe. Yeah, so that's that. So basically, because the software is fairly up to date, you shouldn't have any problems. Now, unfortunately, there are problems because there are minor incompatibilities with certain compact flash cards, and not every one of them works. So, the compact flash device is still getting updated, and you can send off some debug information to the author and potentially get the driver updated to support newer cards. But sometimes it's just luck of the draw. But one trick with the bigger drives that I've used in the past, and it applies both to compact flash and SD cards, because ultimately with the adapter, all your the computer doesn't really know the difference. But it's to reformat the card using different block sizes. So when you format a new card in Windows, you can choose what block size to use, and I think by default, like especially some of the bigger cards, like 16, 32 gig cards, they can use a 32 kilobyte block size. And now I've found that just changing the block size has gotten some troublesome cards to work. So changing it down to 4K, it doesn't really make much of a difference Amiga wise. It might affect transfer speeds somewhat on the PC, but for shuttling files across, you're not going to notice the difference really. But yeah, changing to a 4K block size has solved that problem for me with some cards, not all cards, but some cards, and it's worth a go, especially if you have the card lying around, but whatever. But in practice, I've used 16 gig, 32 gig cards. I have a bunch of 2 and 4, 8 gig cards lying around that I use, so it's generally pretty compatible, and you don't need to worry about the 4 gig thing. Despite the kind of the general feeling of wariness once you get to the 4 gig size. So so just work away, and it'll either work or it won't work. But you can try a couple of tricks in the DOS driver as well to get increased compatibility. But yeah, sometimes changing the block size is enough to get it working.
Well, that's great news, Rob. Thanks for that. I do have plans for this, but I'll save that for another episode to talk about. But that's really good news. Well, that's everything for today. I want to say thanks to everybody for joining us today. Thanks to Walk Hero, and thanks to Aris for being here. It was nice to hang out with you guys in some shape or form.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll see you in June, where we come back with some more news. And until next time...
Music was by Virtual Dimensions, Banjo Gaioli, Extend, and Dippy.
Feel free to get in touch at info@amigausers.ie.
This month's song is Night of the Hunter by Alex Menchie. It came 3rd place at Amiga Ireland 2021. Congrats to Alex, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.
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 It's top secret information. The date for Amiga Ireland is the 21st of January 2022.